Happy New Year, everybody. 2021 is here. That means week 17 on the docket, and I'm back with 6 of my favorite plays on FanDuel and DraftKings, including what game I'm stacking up, my favorite value play, and of course, my favorite play of the week. Who is it? Belly up to the fantasy bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Week 17 edition Beers Daily Fantasy Six-Pack. Hope everybody out there had a good Christmas, a happy New Year, and we are back to wrap up the regular season with 6 guys fresh off the tap for you on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Before we do that, guys, do me a favor. Make sure on YouTube you're clicking that thumbs up button. Really helps us out here. That's the tip jar here in the fantasy bar. I greatly appreciate you hitting that button, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Get notified when these videos are coming out. Now, as we always do, before we talk week 17, let's take a quick peek back at week 16. A pretty solid week. We avoided the red this week. Need a little bit more out of our Chargers-Broncos. Correlation skinny stack there with Eckler and Fant, but they didn't kill us. Our Chicago connection was there. All in all, a pretty solid week. All right, let's move on, though, to week 17. Last week of regular season football. This week can be dicey. Make sure you're paying attention to the news. But we're going to jump in here at the wide receiver position with a guy I think is going to go overlooked this week, Corey Davis of the Titans. Now, the price is kind of creeping up on Corey Davis, and I think a lot of people are going to look at it and say, I'd rather pay a little bit more and go to A.J. Brown. And in a lot of scenarios, I agree with that. We know Brown, very high ceiling, doesn't need a lot of volume to get there, but ownership is really going to tend to go that way as well. So you're looking at a guy, people are going to assume that's a little bit too much of a price on him. You're also going to see recency bias come into play here. Not as much of a factor in DFS these days as it was in years past, but a guy coming off a 0 going to make people nervous. So I think that will help us as well. Keep Corey Davis off the radar here. And this matchup, really love this game. This Texans secondary, the loss of Roby, they are absolutely atrocious back there. 7th most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. Davis, a few disappearing acts here, but for the most part, been very consistent. You can feel good about his floor. I know Derrick Henry, a guy a lot of people are going to talk up here, but gives you leverage there as well. I love the spot against this defense for Corey Davis to lead us off here in the first 6-pack of 2021. All right, let's go to the quarterback position. We're going to go to the other side of that game. We're going to go with DeShaun Watson of the Texans. Now, Watson been great. Ever since the coaching change, the Texans not a playoff team or anything, but putting stats on the board here. In fact, 300 or more yards passing for DeShaun Watson in 5 of his last 6 games. So we know that bonus, very valuable on DraftKings. We also know he's going to chip in on the ground and give you those rushing yards, at least 2.4 rushing points in 10 straight games. So you add that to the mix as well. And then you look back at this matchup. We know the Titans, as good as they are offensively, they're even worse defensively. They're always in shootouts. They're always in high-scoring games. And Watson showed that his second highest output of the season, the massive 35 DraftKings points against this defense back earlier in the season. We know the Texans going to want to play spoilers here against this Tennessee team, trying to win the division, trying to get in the playoffs. I think Watson has a massive day here against this Titans defense. So we like Watson. Let's pair him up with one of his pass catchers. We're going to go to the wide receiver position with KEKE. I think a lot of people are going to go to Brandon Cooks, and I'm okay with that as well, or even a double stack here. I think there's enough viability with this passing game where you can get both of those guys in there, but let's go the route not a lot of people are going to go here. And QT, I know, another guy. We're not seeing a massive ceiling out of him, but I love him, especially in DraftKings, to gather in those receptions, double-digit DraftKings points now in 4 straight games. And we mentioned how bad this Tennessee defense is. Bottom 3 in the league in both fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, along with DVOA against the pass here. So either guy is fine. You'll save a little bit of money on QT. I think you'll save some ownership as well. Been kind of banged up throughout the week. Has that little Q tag next to his name. That should help keep ownership down here as well. But any way you slice it, loving this Texans offense this week against the Tennessee Titans. All right, let's get out of that game. Let's move on to another big game in the NFC North. We're going to go to the tight end position for Robert Tonyan of the Packers. So we know the Green Bay offense been electric this season. Aaron Rodgers is back. Devontae Adams been tearing it up. But Tonyan gives us that cheaper access to this team. We can save some money and still get access to a team projected to score a ton of points in this game, even against a tougher defense like Chicago. And Tonyan, simple, a touchdown maker. And we don't have a lot of that at the tight end position. Travis Kelce likely to sit out. So we're missing that. You don't have to compete with the ceiling of Kelce. But Tonyan gives us that touchdown upside. In fact, touchdowns now in 5 of the last 6 games. And guess what? Chicago, this is their weak spot in that defense. Not very good against the tight end position. You got to think a lot of attention going to be paid to Devontae Adams in that passing game. The Packers lose their left tackle, David Bakhtiari. So running the ball may be a little bit harder than they're anticipating. So it could lead to even more opportunities for Tonyan. And like I mentioned, the Bears not only bad against tight ends, they give up a lot of touchdowns to this position. In fact, third most in the entire league, 10 touchdowns allowed to the tight end position. I think Tonyan does it again this week, finds the end zone, easily pays off these prices on both FanDuel and DraftKings. All right, let's go to the other side of that game. A little correlation with running back David Montgomery of the Bears. Now, as a Packer fan, it's hard to have all these Bears in here. You guys are probably sick of the Chicago Bears, as am I, but in DFS, we have to look at what they're doing. They continue to put 30-point games on the board. I think they're going to be able to find success here against this Green Bay defense, who's been better of late, but still, against the run, they are not good. And in Montgomery, been the catalyst here for this offense. 20 or more DraftKings points now in 5 straight weeks for David Montgomery. That also includes a game against this Green Bay Packers defense back in week 12. That was the game that kind of catapulted him to this hot start, 28 DraftKings points in that game here. And I mentioned that Green Bay defense, yes, they're playing better, still 5th most fantasy points allowed to the running back position, a matchup we've been targeting all season long. And if I'm the Bears, I have a better shot at winning with David Montgomery carrying the ball, catching the ball in the backfield, or Mitchell Trubisky unleashing it against that secondary. I think I'm going with the running back here. Even if the Bears get down in this game, Montgomery can be involved in the passing game as well. We've seen many games where he gets a ton of targets there, owns that backfield, a workhorse, and not yet priced like a workhorse. Take advantage here with David Montgomery against the Green Bay Packers. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play for Week 17. But before we do that, guys, as always, we're going to thank you once again with our Beast of the Week contest. Absolutely free to play. Just get in the comment section below the video and guess fantasy points for my Beast of the Week on FanDuel. The closest guess will win themselves either a free week of RotoGrinders Premium, a chance to check everything out, or a free RotoGrinders t-shirt. Let's wrap up the regular season here. My favorite play for Week 17, known as the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time, we owe you one more running back. We're going to close out the season with running back Jonathan Taylor of the Colts, this week's Beast of the Week. Now, Taylor really starting to play well. I know there were some worries. Is this guy a bust? Is he ever going to make it? But it seemed refreshed coming off that couple weeks where he missed. 5 rushing touchdowns now over the last 3 weeks. I know he's still in a split with Nyheim Hines, about a 60-40 split looking at the numbers last week, but the touches are there, the touchdowns are there. 2 of those touchdowns came against perhaps the league's best defense in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now he gets a matchup with one of the worst defenses in the league. We'll touch on them in a second, but the production has been there for Taylor, averaging almost 24 DraftKings points a game over the last 4 weeks. We mentioned the Jacksonville Jaguars, bottom 5 in almost any category you want to look at against running backs, fantasy points, rushing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns. We could go on and on. The point is, Taylor, big favorite here at home. The Jags have pretty much given up. Trevor Lawrence locked in here. I think you see a massive day out of Jonathan Taylor. Even if this game turns into a blowout, I think the reason why is Jonathan Taylor has a big day. I think multiple touchdowns are going on the board here, making him easily my favorite play for Week 17 and this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that'll wrap us up here for Week 17 and for the regular season, but no worries. We'll be back with a couple weeks of playoff 6-packs. Also have our NBA 6-packs going on a couple times a week, so make sure you check those out. As always, any comments, questions, feedback, hit me up in that comment section. You can also head over to Twitter and follow me at Beermakersfan. And if you want to see this lovely mug, we have a podcast feed on RotoGrinders dedicated to the 6-packs, so make sure you check that out as well. One last plug, the DFS OGs podcast with Head Chopper, Notorious, and myself, breaking down everything Week 17 over on RotoGrinders. And big news moving into 2021 in that pod as well regarding the NBA. So if you're an NBA fan, go check that pod out. We got big news and big shows coming up for RotoGrinders.com. I am Beer saying salut, guys. Best of luck this week. Thank you for stopping by and checking out the video each and every week. Hope you had a great New Year's. We'll see you.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist